If you're joining us today, you're probably the kind of person who thrives on understanding complex, really high-stakes environments. You don't just want to know what happened.
Right. You want to know how the machine works under the hood.
Exactly. You are looking for that hidden competitive advantage. So, well, welcome to our latest deep dive. Today, we're going to explore exactly that. We're putting our focus on building the right startup foundation, specifically as a strategic advantage for life science CEOs.
And we're drawing from this incredibly insightful framework provided by NovaDynamic Technology Services today.
We are. And our mission for this deep dive is to decode something that, honestly, it sounds completely unglamorous on the surface, but it's absolutely vital. We are going to look at why those behind-the-scenes operational and IT decisions, the ones made in the very first 12 to 24 months of a life science startup, are actually your ultimate secret weapons.
Yeah, because those are the decisions that dictate your ability to scale, to secure investor funding, and ultimately, protect your scientific breakthroughs.
It's definitely not a dry business lecture. This is essentially a blueprint for survival.
It really is about survival. Because to understand why this is so critical, we have to look at the environment these startups are operating in. The pressure cooker of the life sciences sector is, well, it's truly unique.
Right. It's not like you're just building a consumer software app in your garage.
Exactly. If that app crashes, someone just can't post a photo.
Yeah.
But here, you're dealing with colliding forces that are frankly monumental. First, you've got immense scientific uncertainty. The core molecule or the therapy you're pouring millions into it might not even work.
Yeah.
Then you have this massive capital intensity. You are burning through cash at an astonishing rate just to keep the lights on, keep the clean room sterile, run the labs. Add to that the rapid scaling expectations from your board, and top it all off with an incredibly heavy burden of regulatory frameworks.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the life sciences sector loves its alphabet soup. We hear these acronyms thrown around constantly, right? FDA, obviously, but also GXP, IPA, CLIA, CAP. For anyone listening who hasn't been deep in the operational trenches of a biotech lab, how do these acronyms actually dictate everyday operations?
It's a great question, and if you don't understand the regulations, you simply can't understand the stakes. So the FDA is the ultimate gatekeeper, we all know that. But underneath that, you have GXP.
Which stands for?
It's an umbrella term for good practice guidelines. So good clinical practice, good manufacturing practice, good laboratory practice. It dictates exactly how you document every single thing you do so that it is traceable and highly verifiable.
Got it. And high pay.
High pay protects patient data, sure, but in a clinical trial setting, securing that data is highly complex. And if your startup involves clinical laboratory testing on human specimens, you get hit with CLIA and KP standards. Those govern lab quality and accuracy.
That is a lot to juggle.
It is. If your underlying technology and operations can't automatically support that massive web of compliance, every single early decision you make carries devastating long-term consequences.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the core thesis of the NovaDynamic framework. The premise here is that decisions about IT, data, facilities, and operations, they aren't just back office tasks.
Right, they aren't chores.
Exactly. They aren't chores a founder hands off to an office manager so they can get back to the real science. They are actual strategic levers. But I want to push back on this for a second.
Yeah?
Because I can hear a startup founder listening right now saying, look, I only have $5 million in seed funding. My only job right now is to prove this molecule works. I cannot afford to build some massive enterprise-level IT ecosystem on day one. I need pipettes and scientists. I don't need servers. How does this framework justify that upfront operational cost?
That is the exact trap so many brilliant founders fall into. They view operational infrastructure as a distraction from the science. But the reality is, without a solid operational and tech foundation, leaders end up scaling through pure chaos.
Chaos is a good word for it.
It is. Building a foundation isn't about buying expensive toys you don't need. It's about scaling with intention. It's the difference between constantly putting out fires and actually steering the ship. The framework outlines 5 specific ways this strong foundation enables better strategic decisions, and it directly answers that founder's concern.
Let's get into those pillars. The first one is moving from chaos to clarity through reliable real-time visibility.
Yes.
And let's visualize that for the listener, because a life science organization generates a mind-boggling volume of data. It's not just the scientific data coming off the lab instruments.
Oh, not at all. It's operational data, financial data, regulatory compliance data, and even facility-related data like freezer temperatures.
So when a founder tries to save money by using disconnected makeshift systems,
They are essentially operating in the dark. Imagine trying to fly a commercial jet, but none of your dashboard instruments talk to each other. Your altitude gauge is broken, your engine temperature is reading out in a language you don't even understand, and your fuel gauge updates 3 days late.
That sounds terrifying.
That is exactly what it's like running a startup where finance doesn't know what reagents the lab just ordered, and the lab doesn't know the IT network is too slow to upload their latest genomic sequencing run. A unified view allows a CEO to track accurate burn rates, allocate resources efficiently, and spot early compliance risks before they become catastrophes.
So you can actually prioritize your limited funding based on real-time facts instead of assumptions.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's say a founder gets that visibility. The dashboard works, the science is hitting its marks. What happens when the company suddenly hits a milestone and explodes in size? Because growth in this space isn't just adding one user at a time. It is highly nonlinear. You jump from 10 employees to 50, and then suddenly you have 200.
And that is the second pillar, operational readiness for scale. This is exactly where the duct tape and wire approach totally breaks down. One new clinical program, a new facility lease, or one new partnership can double your operational complexity literally overnight.
Just boom, instantly twice as complicated.
Think about a scientist hired on a Tuesday. In a chaotic, unscalable system, they show up and wait 3 weeks for lab access, software licenses, and compliance training approvals. They're a highly paid expert burning company cash, just sitting at a desk waiting for IT tickets to clear.
While the science grinds to a complete halt.
Exactly. But in an integrated ecosystem, HR enters their name, the network automatically provisions their lab access, sets their data security privileges based on their role, and updates the finance burn rate model instantly. They're doing actual science on Wednesday.
That is a huge difference.
If your foundation isn't scalable, every new growth milestone introduces massive friction. If you open a new lab space, but your IT network can't handle the terabytes of data output from the new mass spectrometers, your facilities and IT have suddenly become bottlenecks to the scientific momentum.
Which seamlessly brings us to the concept of technical and operational debt, the third pillar. And I find this concept terrifying because of how silently this debt accumulates. Early-stage companies are understandably in a rush. They adopt temporary tools, manual Excel spreadsheets to track inventory, quick IT fixes. It feels incredibly efficient in the moment.
What's fascinating here is that it feels efficient until it suddenly isn't. You end up with a server full of files named Clinical Trial Data Final Version 3v2.xlsx.
We've all seen that file.
Right. In the life sciences space, these shortcuts build up into a mountain of debt. And the brutal truth is that this debt becomes painfully, embarrassingly visible at the worst possible times.
Like when?
Usually during Series A or Series B diligence, during a major facility expansion, or when you were staring down a security audit or a GXP readiness check.
I imagine rebuilding your infrastructure while under pressure from auditors or impatient investors is incredibly expensive.
It is exorbitant. You aren't just paying for the new system, you are paying to halt operations, untangle the old mess, migrate compromised data, and pray you didn't lose anything critical. Building the right architecture and governance from the start, even if it feels slightly heavy in month 3, eliminates the need for those emergency multi-million-dollar overhauls in year 2.
So what does this all mean for the people actually writing those multi-million-dollar checks? That leads into the fourth pillar, investor confidence. Because venture capitalists and private equity firms aren't just looking at the molecule or the clinical potential anymore. They're looking under the hood at the machine itself.
They absolutely are. Investors evaluate operational maturity just as harshly as they evaluate scientific potential these days. They have been burned way too many times by brilliant scientists who ran their companies into the ground through operational incompetence.
Ouch, but fair.
When an investor looks at your startup, a strong foundation signals capital stewardship. It shows discipline. It proves that the leadership team actually understands the reality of regulatory expectations and has a significantly lower risk of a compliance failure. When they see a well-structured IT and operational foundation, they see a team capable of executing without an operational collapse.
That direct line between IT infrastructure and company valuation is something many founders probably miss entirely.
Completely.
And rounding out these 5 pillars is faster, more informed decisions. We talk about speed a lot, and founders always want to move fast. But a key takeaway here is that speed only matters when it's paired with accuracy.
Moving fast in the wrong direction just means you hit the wall much harder. If your systems and workflows are aligned, you have clean, consistent data. You have integrated scientific and business insights.
So CEO can pivot quickly.
Yes. If a specific assay isn't yielding results but it's costing $50,000 a week in materials, a connected system flags that immediately. The CEO can allocate resources and respond to a scientific setback with absolute precision. In a sector where being first to market can literally define your entire competitor advantage, that level of clarity is invaluable.
Okay, so we know the stakes. We know what this foundation is supposed to achieve: visibility, scale, low debt, investor confidence, fast decisions. But how does a startup actually get there? The framework introduces a completely different model for life science growth called the Strategic IT Business Partner Model.
Yes, and it contrasts this directly with the traditional way of doing things, which is hiring a managed service provider or an MSP.
Why does the traditional MST model break down so badly in a life science environment?
Because the traditional MSP is built on a break-fix mentality. Their business model is reacting to broken things. A user forgets a password, they submit a ticket, the MSP resets it, the printer jams, they fix it.
Tickets and tools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But life sciences require proactive, highly specialized strategy. Did you try turning it off and on again? Is not an acceptable troubleshooting step for a bioreactor running a 2-month cell culture.
Definitely not.
NovaDynamic's model replaces this reactive approach with 3 core pillars of their own. First, a business-aligned technology strategy, where tech decisions are mapped directly to the scientific and commercial milestones.
In a second.
Integrated ecosystems, meaning infrastructure, cybersecurity, facilities, and business systems are designed cohesively, with 0 silos. And third is founder-led expertise. They bring decades of experience specifically in regulated environments. They understand GXP. They transform IT from a nagging cost center into a strategic asset.
Let's make this really concrete for the listener, because integrated ecosystem is a great buzzword, but what does it actually look like in practice? If I walk into a life science startup operating under this model, what am I seeing?
You're seeing 5 distinct areas operating in total harmony. First, you have secure IT. This isn't just setting up a Wi-Fi router. This is stable, high-performance network infrastructure that can support heavy lab instruments, massive data capture, and seamless secure collaboration with contract research organizations across the globe.
Right.
Second, you have integrated business systems. This is what we touched on earlier with the onboarding example, connecting finance, HR, operations, and science so that data flows seamlessly and blind spots are eliminated.
And the third piece has to be cybersecurity. It's the elephant in the room for any data-heavy industry, but especially here where intellectual property is literally the entire value of the company.
Cybersecurity in this ecosystem means being audit-ready from day one. It means your security controls are already aligned with GXP and HIPAA requirements. You have proper identity and access management protecting sensitive data automatically. You aren't scrambling to retrofit compliance when a partner demands a security audit.
Which happens a lot.
Fourth, we look at facilities. A strong foundation ensures that environmental monitoring, building access, and lab instruments are all talking to the IT infrastructure. If a minus 80-degree freezer drops in temperature at 2 a.m., it shouldn't just beep in an empty hallway.
Right. Nobody is there to hear it.
Exactly. It needs to trigger an immediate escalating alert through the IT network to the facility manager's phone to save the samples.
And none of that orchestration works without the fifth element, governance. You need defined decision-making processes. Otherwise, even the best systems descend into chaos. Who owns the data? Who has permission to grant access? If that isn't clearly defined, you are building a house of cards.
Very true.
Which brings us to a phrase from the framework that I just love, and it perfectly describes the alternative to this ecosystem: vendor sprawl.
Vendor sprawl is a massive, often paralyzing headache for early-stage companies. Imagine trying to untangle a giant bowl of spaghetti, but every single noodle is a different vendor contract.
You have one company doing your general IT,
A completely different software vendor for your electronic lab notebook,
a third handling cybersecurity.
and a fourth managing your physical door swipes. And none of them talk to each other.
So when something breaks, they just point fingers.
Exactly. You get conflicting advice and absolutely no unified strategy. NovaDynamic's model solves this through vendor consolidation. You replace multiple conflicting providers with one accountable strategic partner. It accelerates execution because you finally have one cohesive roadmap and honestly one throat to choke if things go wrong.
Here's where it gets really interesting. For you listening right now, whether you are currently prepping to lead a team, actively scaling a startup, or you just want to understand how the best in the business architect their operations, the framework provides a brilliant, actionable playbook.
This really does.
It is a specific six-step framework for CEOs to actually build this foundation. Let's walk through it step by step. Step 1 is defining the roadmap.
Right, and this isn't just a generic business plan. Step 1 demands that you anchor your technology decisions to your specific 12 to 24-month scientific and commercial milestones.
So looking ahead,
Yes. Are you filing an investigational new drug application next year? Are you moving into phase 1 clinical trials? Are you building out a new clean room? If you know these milestones are coming, you design the IT and operational infrastructure for them today. You do not wait until the concrete is poured to figure out how to network the instruments.
Step 2, map the workflows. This is all about tracking exactly how data moves across the organization, right?
Yes, you have to follow the life cycle of a single piece of data. It is generated by a lab instrument. Then where does it go? To a scientist's laptop, then to a shared server.
Then to ops, finance, leadership.
By mapping this entire journey early on, you spot the danger zones. You see where data is being manually copied and pasted, which introduces massive human error, and you identify exactly where bottlenecks are going to slow down your scientific progress.
That brings us to step 3, which the framework is incredibly firm on. Establish compliance baselines early. The cardinal rule here is to never ever retrofit compliance. Why is retrofitting such a nightmare?
Because regulatory expectations like GXP and data integrity absolutely do not care that you are moving fast and breaking things. Building for compliance from day one ensures your data is inherently traceable and access is tightly controlled from the very moment it is created.
But if you wait until year 3,
You usually find out your foundational architecture can't support the necessary audit trails. You literally have to rip out live servers, migrate vulnerable data, retrain your entire staff on new workflows, and pause your scientific momentum to do it. The cost in dollars and lost time is staggering.
which makes step 4 vital. Build scalable infrastructure, not temporary fixes. We touched on this with technical debt, but this step is about actively choosing cloud environments and robust identity management systems early on.
Exactly. When you grow from 10 to 200 employees, you want a system where adding 50 new users is just a matter of adjusting your cloud licensing and setting their permissions.
Rather than realizing your on-premise server is out of storage and everyone is locked out. Step 5 is the antidote to the spaghetti bowl we talked about earlier. Consolidate vendors under one strategic partner.
This step simplifies your operational life immensely. It ensures that decisions are made holistically. Your cybersecurity strategy informs your lab instrument network strategy, which then informs your facility access strategy. It reduces complexity and cuts overhead.
And finally, step 6. Review and adjust quarterly. You can't just build this foundation once and forget about it.
No, because science is inherently unpredictable. Your foundation has to evolve as your science evolves. If a trial pivots, your tech needs to pivot. You have to reassess your operational risks, update your compliance needs, and ensure your strategic partner is aligned with your new reality every single quarter. It keeps you proactive instead of reactive.
When you lay out those 6 steps, defining the roadmap, mapping workflows, establishing compliance early, building scalable infrastructure, consolidating vendors, and adjusting quarterly, the strategic advantage becomes glaringly obvious.
It really does.
You scale faster, you spend significantly less capital on rework, and you avoid the compliance pitfalls that silently sink so many promising companies.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes clear that early investment in this operational backbone is the ultimate protective measure. It prevents the dreaded operational collapse that plagues so many startups. It attracts top-tier investors because they see a well-oiled machine that actually works. In a sector where development timelines are agonizingly long and capital is incredibly precious, these operational advantages compound very, very quickly.
It brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this deep dive. There is one powerful quote from the framework that perfectly summarizes everything we've discussed today. Speed without structure leads to fragility.
That's a great line.
I think that is something every leader, in life sciences or not, needs to write on a sticky note and put on their monitor. Speed without structure leads to fragility. A well-designed foundation is not overhead. It isn't a distraction from the science. It is a strategic asset that actually accelerates everything that comes next.
It protects your science, it protects your capital, and it positions you to scale with intention rather than panic.
And as a quick reminder to wrap up, NovaDynamic Technology Services exists specifically to be that strategic IT business partner for innovation-driven sectors. Their entire model is built around helping companies create this exact, scalable, compliance-ready backbone from day one.
You know, digesting all of this raises an important question, and it's something I want to leave you to ponder as we finish up. Given how heavily investors now weigh operational maturity and pristine, traceable data against pure scientific potential, we have to wonder about the future of AI and drug discovery.
Oh, wow.
As AI becomes the standard, relying on massive, flawless, perfectly structured data sets to function, will a startup's underlying IT architecture and data hygiene soon be valued even higher than the initial molecule they discovered?
That is a fascinating thought to leave on. The operational infrastructure becoming just as valuable, if not more so, than the initial discovery itself. It completely flips the traditional biotech script. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning how the foundations of your own projects were built. Keep looking for those hidden strategic levers, and we will catch you on the next one.